Catherine, thanks very much indeed. But the Prime Minister for all the tea in China. Now, for a bit more positive news, though, for millions of us across the UK, because the government's reduction of national insurance takes effect today.
But how positive is it? Because announced in the Chancellor's autumn statement, the pre-election cut to national insurance from 12 to 10% will impact around 27 million payroll employees across the UK.
Yeah, this is what the Chancellor had to say.
Today is a very significant day because having turned the corner on inflation, brought it right down, the economy is doing much better, and that means we can start to bring down taxes. Today's cut in national insurance by 2% means that a typical family with 2 earners will be nearly £1,000 better off this year. That is really important in a cost of living crisis where people have been feeling real pressure on family budgets. But also it rewards work. It'll bring more people into the labour force, and that is good for growing the economy.
The Chancellor Jeremy Hunt speaking there. Well, some critics have questioned whether the timing of the tax cuts, with an election on the horizon, is just a bid to woo voters.
OK, let's talk to former advisor to the Bank of England, Dr drrogergewolb. Good to see you, Roger, as always. Let me put a point to you from Charles in Wingerworth. Roger, who's been in touch, and says, I can't understand the negative reporting of today's NI cut. Surely an extra £450 a year in our pocket is good news. Is it as simple as that?
No, it isn't. I mean, I'm not a cynical person by nature, but this is yet another cynical move by this government, I'm afraid. It was just stated in the earlier piece that the North Sea oil is going to benefit British energy security. Well, no, it's not, because it's all going to be sold on the open international markets, and the profits are going to go to energy companies, not us. You can't believe a word these people say. What's negative about this national insurance cut is that they have not moved the frozen thresholds. So people are being dragged further and further into tax at the same time. One very prestigious think tank pointed out yesterday that for every £2 of tax cuts we're being given, Mr. Hunt and Mr. Sunak are taking £10 more in additional tax. So it's all a sham, really. And it hurts, of course, the lowest earners. People who earn less than $26,000 are the hardest hit. But of course, they were not going to vote for the Tories anyway, were they?
So when you look at everything combined, Roger, as far as you're concerned then, is it a tax increase?
Well, it's not as far as you know, just me is concerned. It's the Institute of Fiscal Studies. It's the Resolution Foundation. It's a list that could probably take the rest of this program to enumerate, have said that the autumn statement was a highly cynical a piece of work designed, as you said, you know, to get votes from the places where the votes are likely, and that the net effect of it, they all say, is actually a massive tax increase to take us to the highest level of taxation since 1948. This government, I'm afraid, has as much credibility as a fox flapping his arms and clucking in a hen house.
All right, so where does this leave us then, Roger? Because we know we're not getting tax cuts in the terms that many of us would like from Rishi Sunak. We're not going to get them from Keir Starmer either, should he get into power. He's already sort of ruled out any tax cuts within the first 2 years. So we're just stuck, aren't we?
We're in a perilous place. I mean, the Lib Dems, there's a program on television this week about the really worst scandal to hit British people in many years, the post office scandal, the scandal involving 700 sub-postmasters and postmistresses, many of whom went to prison, lost their homes, some committed suicide. And Sir Ed Davey, who was the minister responsible for postal affairs at the time, didn't look into it. And if you look at his Wikipedia page, his own page, he admits that he didn't investigate what was going on over almost 20 years. Now, that's because nobody told him. So this guy is going to lead a political party. Oh, excuse me, sir. The NHS waiting list has quadrupled. Well, no one told me. I mean, come on. What happened to the buck stops here? Keir Starmer and the rest of the Labour Party are just sitting, as Boris called them, the human bollards, saying nothing. Why should they? and we don't really know what their policies are. Mr. Kyle, I believe his name is, was on the other day, and he was a lot friendlier and more presentable than Starmer, but I was in a room full of people, and they all turned to each other and said, yeah, he's a lot better, but gosh, he didn't actually say anything, did he? Jordan Peterson, the noted psychologist and political analyst, said that if Labor gets in, Britain will become Venezuela for the next 20 years. So that leaves Reform, who are looking good, but our first past the post system means that no one can displace Labor or the Tories. I mean, it's a very, it's like going to the moon that Reform could actually push them both out. But, a lot of what they're saying is making sense. But the rest of these folks, I mean, we are in a real pickle. And I was speaking with some senior Tories on a very confidential basis, asking questions you have asked me before, which I wasn't able to answer very well. Why in the world would they do this? Why would they, gaslight us, lie to us, tell us they're doing one thing when they're doing another, persistently, constantly do things against our interests as if they don't care about us? Why would they do that? And their answer to me, finally, I can now say to you, is because they can, because they think the alternative is so horrible that people will still vote for them.
OK, Roger, on that rather depressing note, we've got to leave it there, but good to see you, as always. Thanks very much indeed.
What a mess.
It doesn't give you a lot of hope, does it?
And it might not be resolved until the autumn. Although we're reckoning it's more likely to be May.
I think so, but I could very well be wrong. If I was going to put a little bet on, that's what I'd do.
Well, also a mess is our weather.